Alright, you guys, here it is. You asked for it. I kind of wanted to do it anyway. The tutorial for the Minerva Wither Farm. That's kind of what I'm calling it. I don't want to come up with any kind of fancy name or whatever. I just wanted it to be simple. Minerva Wither Farm. So, this is in the survival world on the Minerva server, live right now. And, we're going to start here just to show you kind of the farm running, that it works, how fast it is. So, based on my tests, on the survival world plus the old test long before 1.13, it averages about 5 skulls a minute. This is without our roof removed, and with a second account you can sneak into the 7 to 8 skulls a minute range. And you get blaze rods, and you get bones, well, from the normal skeletons obviously, you get gold from the pigmen. It's an all-in-one nether farm. We call it the Wither Farm because it's kind of the flashier title, but this should be ample enough nether loot for you and honestly any size community. You run this thing overnight, set up some macros, some extra accounts for those extra rates, and this thing will produce more skulls and coal and bones and you're gonna need for pretty much whatever you're doing. This design features 64 ghasts, a whole lot of redstone. I don't actually have a parts list for you guys because as of recording this, as of today, Schematica for 1.13 is not out. So when that does come out, I'll try to remember to release a schematic of this design. I would highly encourage using that for the construction of this farm. That'll help you make sure everything's in place. It'll give you an organized parts list, something that I do not currently have. I might add up everything in the end and list it below, but yeah, I mean, it'll be helpful to know everything you're going to need, so I'll try to do my best for that. Obviously, like I said, you will need to catch 64 ghasts to run this farm. Without further ado, let's hop into the tutorial world. Let's get this thing started. Here we are. So, what you're seeing here is a copy of the Minerva world. If I go /kill myself, it'll take me out, bring me over to spawn. This is where the world download will basically start. And then I'll show you what to do. If you're building this on any world, getting deafened by a portal, you're going to want a nether fortress. And that's sort of the beauty of this design, is nether brick in the floors of the spawning pads, just so that you can build it pretty much anywhere there's a fortress. So, if you've located one like we have, this will teleport you to actually the exact place that we built it on Minerva, about -700. That's just for our seed. If you're using our seed, then here you go. But basically, you just need any nether fortress. Because this uses the bounding box, it's pretty hard to miss it. So my recommendation is find it somewhere centered. I don't have any specific tools for you guys. I don't have any like specific here program to find the bounding box, but if you go anywhere relatively in the center, in our case it was about -700, this works fine for us. That should work for you. Next step, I'm so sorry, but next step, perimeter time. Once you've located the middle of your nether fortress, this is where a tremendous amount of work is required. However you want to do it is up to you. You can use something I've seen before, are buttons. If you've got stone buttons, just spam them everywhere. I mean, everywhere. If you miss a single block within a 128 block radius of the spawning area, of your killing area, the mobs will spawn there and your farm rates will be affected. Obviously, you saw in Minerva, we opted to just dig out the entire thing. You can spam lava everywhere. You can use half slabs, glass, glowstone, sea lanterns if you got a guardian farm, anything that spawn proofs the area. But like I said, you need to cover every single block. If you miss one, a pigman can spawn there and it'll affect your rates. Now, optional 1.13, this is kind of a trick, but removing bedrock will increase your rates. Optional. You see that we didn't do that on Minerva yet. It's not necessary. You saw the rates I was getting without even doing that. It's kind of up to you, but once you've selected the middle of your perimeter, write it down on a notepad, save those coordinates, get it saved somewhere, and then just dig it out. On Minerva, we did a 128, or no, not a 128. We did a 301 by 301. It's pretty standard for us to do this. It's just kind of a Minerva number that we like, but 150 blocks out in every direction will be enough blocks away, 128 blocks. After that 128th block, mobs will despawn instantly, so they can only stay alive in your farm. So we go about 150 just to give you that extra leeway. That means you can walk around this area, move around a bit. Other people can be right next to you and it's not going to slow down the farm at all. If you want to do the bare minimum and on the AFK chamber in that 2x3 I showed you, you made it a 128 block sphere around you. That would technically work, but you know, one person, you know, one friend comes over here, mobs will start spawning out there. So make sure that perimeter is nice and secure. I recommend a 301 by 301. Super easy. You can cover it in beacons. You might not need to because it's just an empty hole. And then we like to do the ceiling and sea lanterns, but you can do whatever you want. Once you've picked out that location, we're going to cut to the next step. I'm just going to use MC Edit if I can and just clear out the hole, and then I can show you what to do once your hole is dug. Ta-da! It's a perfect perimeter. Totally dug in survival. I did not load this in MC Edit first. So, once you got your giant hole, I had to put it on render since 16 because you can see the edges. But regardless, this should keep us safe. I did about 22 by 22 chunks, and then that is a similar size, if rather larger, than we built it in survival mode. So, like I said, you're going to want to save your center point. I don't really care where we are, 702 by 702 or something like that. Just somewhere in the center of this farm is okay. But you're going to want to test it. So what I'm going to suggest you doing, it's not an exact science, is taking a copy of your world. Taking a copy of your world with a perimeter, this is what I did on Minerva, and going out to the corners like you're seeing here, and then try to figure out where the spawning floor is. So for example, if I come up to about, say, Y45, you want to do /fill here to here to here, and then do the same thing over here. So I don't want to do tilde tilde tilde. I actually want to have the coordinates. So I'm going to do it just like so. Like I said, this is not an exact science. This is not, you know, this is not the perfect way to do this. But if you do it like this, then you can do spawn in the nether bricks. And then if you see just pigmen like so, then you're going to want to go a little bit higher. So the reason we're doing this is just to make sure that you can spawn it as low as possible. And then you're going to want to keep doing the nether brick command. Let me just show it there. Keep doing the nether brick command one layer at a time until you find wither skeletons spawning and blazes. I'll keep doing this here, and then maybe I'll show a time lapse. Okay, so there it is. We see some blazes. Blazes only spawn in nether fortresses unless there's what am I trying to say? A spawner. So as you can see, we got wither skeletons and blazes up the wazoo. Very little pigmen. They will spawn, of course, but not nearly as many pigmen because now we're inside of a fortress. The reason you want to run this test, obviously, is just two things. First, you want to make sure that this Y level here is as low as possible. If we built this farm down here, it's not going to work. But if we build it up here, we'll have wither skeletons. So if you build the entire spawning floor one block too low, your bottom floor is going to spawn just pigmen. So you're going to want to make sure, this is what I did on Minerva. You want to see that it's Y47. I am standing on 48 in F3. You can see it up here. You're good to build the floor. You're going to want to keep track of this level though. So I'm going to set it to peaceful just because it makes no difference here. Just so that there's not a ton of mobs everywhere. Once you've saved this floor, this is kind of what I did on Minerva. I just came into survival mode and I just said a little sign to tell people to not build past it. I'm just going to, you know, put a sea lantern. And then I can go ahead and use that same command, set it to air, and we can begin. So we're going to start by where you want to kill the mobs. You're going to need to go, I believe, 16 blocks below here, 24 blocks below here, because at this height is where mobs can start spawning. So you're going to want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 6, 7, 8, 9, 22, 3, 4, okay. Down 24 blocks, and then this is the level where you're going to start killing the mobs. You can go ahead and mark that. Bring it over to where your center point is. Obviously, you wouldn't want to be doing it way off to the side. At this point, you should be in survival mode, counting up. In our case, it'll be right down here. You're going to want to select the middle block that you'll be farming them on. All right, or this will be the middle of the perimeter, wherever you want to go. And then you can have to mark it out in hoppers, but we can do all the hoppers later. Basically, just place the trap doors, and then this will effectively mark your chute and where you're going to build them, where you're going to build the farm. So you want to go around the center point. I'm going to use black glass because it looks super slick, and then just make the tube like so. As I showed you in survival mode, or on Minerva, one of these corners is where you're going to be AFKing, or where you're going to be running the farm. So if you want to mark it out, for example, like right here is where you'll be like shooting into the mob chamber. And then, so you just want to like mark that out and make sure that is saved. And then effectively just build up this until you get to where you're going. If get to where you're going wasn't clear enough, basically about 3 to 6 blocks below where they'll be spawning. It doesn't really matter. There will be a lot of glass in this design, so, you know, overbuild, underbuild, it's not really a problem. Just keep this tube going up until you reach a height that you're comfortable starting with. Alright. I'm gonna stop here. Right now we're at Y41. I'm keeping track of that because it's fairly likely that you guys will have a similar spawning area as us. I don't know everything about fortresses. It's kind of a taboo science in that it's not really super well documented, kind of how the fortresses spawn and how to mark them out and all that. Or at least not to my knowledge. Like, obviously people probably know all about it, but which height the fortress spawns at varies. I know this can change because we had a world where we had to build it in Y50 instead of Y48 here. So it was kind of, you know, it deviates. This is why you want to just double, triple check that your spawning floor is okay. But once you've gotten the glass up to a bit, you need to note 2 things. So let me just grab some ice real quick and show you what I'm talking about. This first floor will basically be nether brick, as in like this is where your first spawning pad is, right up here. You're gonna need to go 1, 2, 3 blocks below it for the wither skeleton's height, and then ice, and then not from here, by the way. I'm just sort of mathing it out. Bring it back to the center. 3 blocks down, and then they will be falling another 3 blocks, just like so. And then this is the level that you can start building at. Looks like I kind of nailed it here because these chutes right here will all be ice, and then that'll be where your farm will branch out from. So there'll be lanes here, and then sheets of ice on the left and right here. Now, I should note that this farm isn't really directional. It doesn't matter at all how you build this. So in this case, this farm will be going west to east, or you can build it north to south. It doesn't matter at all. I built it in both orientations, and it makes no difference. All right, once you've worked all this out, you're going to want to go 28 blocks, 8 blocks away from the center point. This line does not count. So you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 blocks. If it helps you in survival mode, I'd suggest putting 28 blocks in your inventory. Now, I specifically want 28 like this because in experience, having built this farm, I'd recommend putting in the rail system for the ghasts first. You don't need to move any ghasts yet. I mean, you can catch them right now if you want to, but in my experience, it's a little bit easier to get the ghast railways in first, although you can put in the sheets of ice. If you'd like to skip ahead, all you have to do is like break out the ice and then put the rails down and then replace it. It's not that big of a deal. I do like the idea of putting in the ice first because that does allow you to kind of know the scale of the area. So what you're going to want to do for the ice, if you want to just skip ahead, is this does count 1 and then go 20 blocks out. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then that'll basically go the entirety of the length of the other one. So if you want to just bring it all the way out to match here, and then basically everything in between. So that'll be the same on both sides. This is completely, you know, symmetric and parallel, just like so. Not parallel, but symmetric. And then just, you know, build out the entire ice sheet as long as this, 28 blocks on the other side, and then do this on both sides. All right, so I marked out the ice just to the end so I can measure out exactly how far I need to go with the ghasts. Because personally, I think you need to go 21 blocks out from here, and then you need to go basically just 1 block past the ice. So 21 blocks just like so, go down 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks of airspace, pump out that block because the ghasts are going to need to fall down. And then just continue this all the way to the end to match up with the other side. You're going to want to go 1 block just like so, 2 blocks like there, and then that should be your ghast ice, or your ghast rail. So bring it up like that, just so the ghast has a place to park. You're going to be going over. This is why I said it's easier to do this, you know, without the ice, because you're going to have to put rails in, and you will need solid blocks for the ghast to connect to. and then just bring it in like so. Now, it is advised to actually bring the ghast up like this, just so the ghast is closer up to the edge. Now, as for powering this, there's only one thing you need to keep track of. It doesn't matter if you use a redstone torch, a lever, or a block of redstone. It depends on how you look. On Minerva, as you saw, we use dark oak wood along these rail lines, and then I put levers underneath because it matches the feel. Although, I'll be using redstone blocks here just because it's easier. Now, you want this back rail and this back rail to be completely unpowered. What this means is you're going to need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blocks in, and then on this block, place a powered rail just so that this rail is unpowered, and then do the same for the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then powered rail. This should be unpowered. This will be powered by a separate circuit later. As for these edges here, you know, just place in redstone blocks / levers / whatever you want. As long as it's powered, and it should look something like this. Then 3 blocks spaced, do the same for everything else. So in this case, you're going to need to go up against the glass. It would be advised to, even if you don't put in the ice stream right here, at least put in all the glass that you need to put in just like this, and then, you know, continue it along the edge. This will mark out the chute for where the ghasts are going to be, and it'll give you something to build off of. So every 3rd block, you're going to want to do this up until the end, and then you'll need to do the same on the other side. I'll show you when I'm finished, and then you can make sure you did everything right. All right, once you're done with the rails, it should look something like this. Yeah, this is from me cloning and everything. Basically, all of the rails should go right up into the glass, and if it works, then it should run like this. I'm gonna spawn in a quick ghast here and show you what we should be seeing. Oh, we're in peaceful. Oh, and okay, the minecart's not actually supposed to go off the edge of the map. That's kind of what the glass is for. I'm gonna do that. All right, so we put the ghast down. They should just go in circles like so without taking in any damage. And then just do the same for the other side. Note, whatever scaffolding you use to build this, keep it there. We will be putting in a lot of glass later on, and you will be going throughout here a lot. It is my suggestion to put in scaffolding at this level. Again, speaking from experience, this will save you so much time to keep just a whole bunch of glass. Honestly, you want a full block just so you don't have to bother with jumping between each of these levels like so. Also, later on, we will be placing torches along these lines. So this will be a great asset to you to have this scaffolding in place just so you can get between all of the rails. Now, I'm sure a few of you see this coming. Do the exact same thing on the other side. It'll be going up just like so. You'll have 3 wide ice and then the glass just like so. Exactly lined up with every single rail. Same length and everything. Also, before I start the other side here, now that your rails are in place, there's nothing stopping you from filling in all of the ice for this section. All right, once you're finished with the other side, it should look something similar to this. Just like that. I mean, big shocker. It's basically like you took the other side and built it over here. And now you just got to do the gas in the middle. We can finish out the ice and we can go and do some wiring. That's when you will start to see your very first spawns. All right, so I kind of went ahead and did this one without you guys just to show you what it should look like. But the trench for the gas, or the gas rails for the trench gas are basically the same. You go out 1 block past the ice, down a couple blocks into this little divot here. This is where the gas will rest. And then a rail just like so going up here to where the other gas will rest. And then, of course, you got to put in the redstone blocks 9 blocks away just so that this last rail is unpowered. If you want to like completely ignore this rule, I didn't mention this earlier because it's not really important, but if you really want to like be lazy about you can do that. You can put a normal rail on either end if you don't care about how you power it, but I like the idea of using just powered rails. Easy to dupe, nice and clean looking, and then you can use a little bit of the signal strength trickery to make it work just the same. But of course, just do the same on the other side. Once you're done, you can put in the ice stream just like so. And then once I'm finished with this side, the entire ice platform thingery would have been placed. And then you can move on to the rest of the farm. Next up is something that is unfortunately necessary, but important to talk about. And that is reinforcement protection. If you don't have any idea what that means, it's Something that I honestly didn't encounter in creative. I tested this design in survival mode. I use this farm a lot, trying to get numbers for the farm, and I never encountered this until we built it in survival. But basically what I mean is when you kill zombie pigmen / anger them, they can summon in zombie reinforcements, which means and these zombies are a little special. I don't know everything about them, but what I know from experience is they can spawn inside these rails. They can get in the way of the ghasts and they'll stop moving, which is why they're a huge problem. And they kind of just avoid most of the normal spawning rules. So one of the things they don't avoid is light level. Light level 10 will prevent them. So up here on this gas block, it's a light level 6. So what you're going to want to do is put torches up like so. This will not melt the ice, just so that every light level is 10, and then just go right down this lane. You don't need to do them every single block like this. All you need to ensure is the rails on the sides are light level 10 or higher. You can see here they're 12. For these ghasts right here, you're going to need to go up and up just to about here, and then it'll be light level 11, or you can go down one block, it'll be 10 as well. This is what we did on our server. You can just put the torches like so, or even up a block, and then these will prevent all of the spawns. Up here it'll be 10, 11, 10. No zombie reinforcements will be able to spawn. You're going to want to put this in between the rails, just like so. Now, because this is an odd number of rails on each side, you've got 30 gas on each side, 15 lanes. You will have, like, towards the center where you're going to need like 3 rows of torches, or however you want to set this up. But if you want to do the bare minimum, you can skip a layer and then do it like so. Or if you want to place them on the side, like I said, any way that you can any way that you can light this up however you please, just do it like so. I'm going to do it like this just because, I don't know, I'll probably end up placing the torches on the side because that'll be easier for me in creative mode. But, you know, make sure everything is light level 10 on these rails before moving on to the next step. All right, while we're working over here, let's finish in a little bit of wiring to do down here. So basically, it's not really important how you wire this, but as long as you wire it up kind of correctly, if you know what I mean. So this will get a little bit messy, but underneath each of these rails where the gas sit, you're going to want to put redstone torch towers. It's not exactly the cleanest wiring ever. I'm not, you know, it's not the proudest thing I've ever made, but it is kind of important. This is what we did on Minerva because I wanted the gas to be synced up, and on the showcase of this world, they were kind of just using repeaters between the gas. If that's something you want, you can totally do that. So I would recommend just like a repeater into dust into, you know, a repeater into dust, and that's a lot easier to wire up. But just for the sake of like doing this the way we did it and kind of my new preferred way of doing it, I want to sync it up as much as possible so it's just a flat wall of gas rotating, and that'll kind of look a lot better and function a bit better. So before they were staggered, and that kind of helped. I mean, it's not a huge deal. If a mob ever got stuck, then another one might get pushed by the other gas, but this way it's just a flat wall of gas. So you're going to want to put torches underneath every single rail connected with repeaters and dust originating from the center. You can do this for every single row, and then towards the middle I'll do a little bit of logistics. Now, while you're doing that, if you come to the other side, just do the exact same thing. So torches underneath each rail with a repeater, and then just a line of dust connecting everything together. You can just bring it all the way to the end, to the last one that you're gonna have to power, and then somewhere in the middle we'll hook up the wiring. All right, I've wired it up, and it shouldn't be too complicated. So like I said, you don't need to do it exactly the way I did, but basically you want to figure out where your input is going to be. I prefer it to be like, you know, right above the farm, just simple torch tower, whatever. And then you just need to line it up so it does something like this. In my case, I just have it powering the rail right here, and then the line just goes, and then there's simple repeaters powering all this wiring. And then somewhere in the middle, you do the same. Just dust leading into these repeaters, and then you place repeaters throughout. Yes, these ghasts will be like one tick behind the others, but it won't really matter, at least for the farm's sake. It'll be completely fine. And then that's it. It's pretty simple, nothing special. For the side here, you're going to want to just go out to the end, power this last ghast. And then up close, power this side of the ghast. Now, on this side, I have it delayed. This is so the middle ghasts are slightly staggered. So with this repeater and then this repeater, it's 2 ticks. That just slows this ghast down, so it's not going to trigger at the exact same time in here, because one will push and then the next will push. That'll keep the mobs from getting all goofed up. And then on the end here, I've done the exact same, but I've added that extra tick in. And I think that's pretty okay. Hopefully that isn't too complicated. I mean, the wiring here, fairly simple. I implore you to not do it exactly the way I've done it, but if you do, that'll work totally fine. And then just to demonstrate, yeah, I'm not gonna spawn in a ghast. Basically, they'll just be rotating. If they're rotating, it should work. If you're doing this appropriately, you shouldn't have put in all the ghasts yet. I mean, no, I was gonna say I guess you can, but I really wouldn't, because if you have them running while they're above this ice, they will be able to see you. Speaking of which, this is the last step to like prep this area. You're going to want to put glass along the edges of the ghast. So I won't be doing this in my tutorial world here, because you'll basically be flying around this purely in creative, I assume. And this will take me a ton of time, but basically to make it safe for the player, you're going to want to put glass all the way along this rail. Now you're putting it here because when you're putting the gas in from here, it will have a line of sight. So you want to block off this entire rail just like so, and then bring that all the way to the end. Now you can't actually put a glass block here or anything, because this needs to be clear for the minecart to fall down. So you want to just completely cover this up. You can go out to the sides like so if you wish. You can bring it down however you want. And that should keep it mostly safe. Now, when you're walking around down below at very, very specific angles, a ghast will have a line of sight, like kind of right here. It might have a line of sight. So what we did on Minerva is when I put in the torches, I connected all this glass to the sides. So just to get a better, clearer image of what that'll look like is basically you can just do it like so. That'll block 99% of the ghast's line of sight if you put in glass up along the edges like so. It won't be necessary on this other side, because you can put a glass block 3 blocks up and then just like so. That'll keep it completely safe. You want to go 3 blocks up from the ghast. It should look like this. And if you do that right, then the minecart should be able to move completely freely, like so. It'll come along here, and then go down the rail. While it's rotating, there's unfortunately no way to safely block the ghast view. So what you're going to want to do is put a glass block 3rd block up, and this will basically go inside of the ghast's head, and he won't be able to see you. And apparently, all of these rails are down for me. Okay, well, I could fix that easily. Just do this. And then that. Alright, so the minecart should be rotating properly now. It'll go up along here, so it shouldn't matter. And then this one will be going down. So you want the glass blocks to be high enough so it won't block it. If you put a block on the 3rd block out from the ghast, you see it'll stop the minecart. So it needs to be completely clear. At least in here, though, you can kind of put as much glass as you want. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, you do need this in place, or else while these ghasts are rotating, they'll have a line of sight to the player, and it'll blow up everything. So do this for every single rail. Again, I won't be. If you're building this with a group of people and they're all referring to this tutorial / world download, because I will be providing a world download for all this, do not leave this blank. Put in the glass just like so. Same goes for over here. This minecart will be going down, so you're going to need to keep it, you know, safe, just like that. And then glass blocks all the way along, 3 blocks up from the rail. And then up here, it doesn't really matter. You can put as much glass as you want. And then up here, just go up 3 blocks, just like that. Follow the rail. This will block the ghast and keep it safe. And then, of course, once you've done this, do the same for the other side. And that should keep you nice and safe. Once you've put in all the glass for the ghasts, stopped their line of sight from the player, lit this up, wired it up properly, you are free and ready to move on to the wiring. Honestly, you probably could have done the wiring already. It doesn't matter. It's just, you know, now that we got all of that out of the way, you should be clear of mind to start the next step. Alright, so the spawning floors are going to be a lot easier than you might think. So For the glass on the sides, this might help you in breaking blocks or whatever. It is recommended to maybe go up about 4 blocks. This will just keep you, I don't know, safe from whatever on the outside. But you can put in the glass about this high. It shouldn't impede actually building it. You're going to want to put the spawning floor is going to be here, and then you're going to need observers out the back, and then behind that you're going to need pistons. So getting everything in place here might be a little bit tricky, but once you got this sort of outline figured out, it shouldn't be that complicated. You can go ahead and build this in the off state like so. Oops, that's not the right observer, needs to go here. It should look like so. Now that'll make it so that when you place in the string, the pistons will fire, but it'll get a little bit tricky as you update the string. So I would recommend putting in the string kind of as you go, because, you know, as soon as mobs start spawning in here, it'll be a little tricky, and actually walking in there and placing it can be kind of a pain. So what you might want to consider doing, is going 20 blocks all the way down the, 20 blocks all the way down the line. You're going to want to go right up to the ice just like this. 2, 3, and then just do all the observers right down to the end, lined up with the glass. Like I mentioned, if you go about 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks up, this will make it a touch bit easier to build. Then put in all the pistons. Now, like I said, while we're ignoring the nether brick, just so wither skeletons and blazes don't make this a lot harder for you to build, I would recommend putting in the string first. That way, once all the string is in place, you can go through with a nether brick. You'll basically be building the farm in the off position. Now, you don't want to go and forget a block like that, because it'll update all 3 pistons. But you can go in there and fix that. Now, above this, you'll have quartz slabs. You can just place all these in just like so. I wonder if spam clicking, yes it does. Spam clicking still makes it a full block, so that's a bug they still haven't fixed in 1.13. Although you shouldn't ever be able to place it that fast, so I can't see that being a priority. You can go ahead, put in the pistons on the other side. Now, what we're working towards here is a repeatable pattern. Basically, once I'm done building what you see here, you're just going to build this up against itself all the way for the rest of the farm. It doesn't matter if any pistons get extended or out of place as you've built here. It won't matter if you missed any, because you will be able to power all of this dust here and fix your mistakes later. And boom. So if you want to spawn proof this as you go, you will need black glass on top of the observer, or any kind of glass. I mean, you need to spawn proof the observers / make sure that nothing will be able to jump out of here after they've spawned, because this is the spawning floor. This is where the mobs will be spawning. If you want to double, triple check, this should be at Y48, at least for me, or whatever that number is we worked out later. That'll be your bottom floor. So go ahead. I can put in the string for the next row here. Make sure that I placed all of it, and place in all the nether brick just like that. I guess it should be mentioned, just in case anybody's curious watching this, considering, yes, it absolutely does need to be nether brick. The whole bounding box trick of this farm relies specifically on you building this out of nether brick. Nether brick inside of the fortress will spawn the wither skeletons and blazes when they normally wouldn't be able to if you used like iron blocks or something. You would basically just get a whole lot of pigment. Are these destroying my blocks? I'm curious where my string is going. Anyway, just build this face to face. So if you want to update this further, these will update the pistons. So you're going to get a really ugly pattern if you don't place in all these blocks last. But basically, you can build it just like so. I'm getting it this far in, just so you can see that this will be back to back to back to back, repeating all the way to the end of the glass. The end of the other side should look just like this as well. It'll end with 1 block remaining if you built it appropriately, or if you built it correctly. So yeah, for this, you're going to need a whole lot of observers. You're going to need, I don't actually know how many. I'll do the math in the description below and get you guys a full list of everything you'll need, but repeat this pattern until the end. Alright, just a quick little update to show you that I successfully cloned in all of my areas. It should line up perfectly like this. You should have 1 layer on the end of the glass, or on the end of the ice. Should look like, I mean, your blocks shouldn't be bugged out like mine. It doesn't matter, like I said. For every single one of these, we will be able to come in like so, and then just retract all the blocks, so it cleans itself up fairly nicely. But if it looks like this, then feel free to build it on the other side. Okay, this was super easy for me to clone. Every single thing should be in place, completely identical to the other side, 20 blocks long and everything. I put the redstone on top, glass too high, and I've started this circuit in the middle. Now, don't fret. It's easy. It's not that complicated. It's basically just one row of slabs, because this is on level with the spawning floors, so these do need to be slabs, connecting at either the first or second observer, however you want to do this, over. Now, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mentioned that this is going to be built a little bit different. So I mentioned earlier that I built this flat on Minerva. You don't have to do this. If you don't want magma cubes to get stuck and you don't care about spectating, it'd be recommended to build this up a little bit higher and then connect it kind of like this instead. So have the wiring go straight down the middle, you know, as it otherwise would, but then over a block and then into a block and then the repeater chain. So basically this repeater chain is only used to bring the signal closer to the center, and then you can even connect it like so. That way the magma cubes don't jump up. And I'm actually going to have to test this sort of live, make sure that this signal will reach to the end, and it appears as though it does. The signal strength is power 2. So what this means is we can successfully build this one block back, and then this will be power level 1. So for each of these sides, go in on this first block, break out all of this like so, place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 repeaters, skipping kind of this first block. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 repeaters, and then on this last row will be dust. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 repeaters, and then connect it like so. And then do this for all of them. All right, all the wiring is in place, and it should look something like this. I would implore you to have it powered while you're doing it, but not a big deal. This is for the bottom layer though, so all of the pistons should retract. Like I said, cleans itself up pretty easily. And then if you were to turn this on, I don't know if this will actually work. Let's find out. There you go. Oh, okay. Well, you can regulate this with an observer. So if I show it like so, oh, maybe we do have one. Do it like that. Place the observer. Turns the entire farm on. If I fly up high enough and set this to, oh, nope. If I set this to hard and get a host while I'm recording, then you'll see the mobs are just gonna kind of pour out of here. This is actually significantly faster than it was on Minerva because of the fact that the entire bedrock is gone above me. So you can see it fills up the mob cap pretty fast. Everything stops spawning because, well, the mob cap is full. And then if you just wanted to turn it off, there you go. So a lot of mobs in here. We are going to build one more layer though. So do the exact same thing up higher. Now, before you do that, actually, it's kind of, you know, easier to do it now than later, but all of this needs to be filled in with glass. Everything above all of the dust. Yes, dust is spawn proof, but we talked earlier about reinforcements. They will spawn in here. So put in all the glass above all of this dust, and then you can start the next layer. Once you're ready for the next layer, it is identical to the one above it. The glass will make it easier to build, but yeah, pistons go in right here. Oops. Pistons go in right here. And then pistons go in back here. And then you're putting observers in place. And then you're putting in core, dust, and then, you know, the rest of the crap we talked about. Just like so. And then do that for the rest of the farm. Well, I mean, you're going to need the nether brick and string, but you know what I mean. Okay, this is probably a lot further into the future for you than it is for me, but every single floor should be wired up with dust and repeaters and all the goodiness of that. There we go. So this one bit is kind of bad to recommend because I don't know everything on the subject, but something we did, so if you'd like to, you can as well. Nether brick inside the farm. So it was found in a GNABin video. I didn't personally watch it. I just get told by people about this stuff. But apparently you can boost this. You can boost the rates of nether mobs inside your farm by placing nether brick around the outside. And I don't see any deficit to just placing the nether brick in at floor level within the wiring. Even if this doesn't help, it can't hurt. So if you don't want to do this aesthetically, don't worry. This farm will be plenty fast. If you'd like to do it, it might even boost your rates. So something to consider, but I'm going to put these in for the tutorial. And as you do this, you do need to put glass in everywhere inside this farm. So I'll basically fill in the entire thing, but to spawn proof, you're just going to put glass everywhere. Technically speaking, you only need to put it right next to the spawning floor, so they make it... Oops. Technically speaking, you only need to put it in the spawning floor, just so they fall straight onto the ice, but, you know, it looks a lot better if you fill the entire thing in with glass. So do that. Nether brick, and then glass on top. So, to go along with that wiring, you're also going to want to bring it out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks, including this glass block. Yeah, I know it'll be a little tricky to replace the glass, but it'll be worth it, I promise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I would recommend covering this up with an unspawnable block like a carpet. Black carpet looks great in my opinion. You can dupe it super easily. In fact, I can show you right now. This might be updated sometime in the future depending on when you're building this, but this is the dupe that I would recommend using. It's super simple. You can just, you know, power it like that, and then just toggle it. And then, you know, it'll just pop up, ton of carpets, and then you can just cover this entire thing with that. So go 5 blocks out in every direction, surrounding the entire farm. It'll look like a giant ring. And then do this for both layers at spawning level. Okay, everybody. That is... that is it for the actual farm. In terms of like every block you need to place to get this thing running, you're good. So I set up this little observer setup here. Basically, you know, the same thing I showed you earlier. If we extend this, then the entire farm turns on. We were toying around, checking this out, and if I turn it to hard, mobs just pour out of here. Like, it's a lot faster than I'm used to, because like I said, we don't have the bedrock removed on our server, so like I haven't seen this farm run this fast yet. You hit mob cap pretty instantly, and that's kind of a good reason to mention that you might want to work on this thing with the floor completely retract and keep it there. But now is the hard, easy, but like depending on how you do it part. Moving the ghasts in. So I don't really know the best way to approach this, but I'll simply link a video in the description below. I'll link the exact same thing that we use. It's a design by Razeworks. Basically, the ghasts spawn. You can trap them. He kind of shows you how to use it. On Minerva, they had a whole setup that I can't even show because it's kind of torn down. But basically, it's a rail setup. Okay, so I wanted to come in here, kind of post recording, and come on to the Minerva survival world. This is actually our survival world where we have the farm running, and very conveniently someone's using right now. Oh, that's loud. And I wanted to show you a little bit of a change that we made to Razeworks design. So after recording all that, I watched Razeworks video. I still recommend watching it and following his sort of design on how to build this. But I wanted to show you a little bit more about what the guys did when they were catching our ghasts. So first and foremost, there's a platform that was in here that they ripped out. It's the same one that Razeworks had, but they did a little bit of a change that's different in 1.13, which wasn't really released when his video came out. And that's that you can actually place turtle eggs, which pigmen hate, with the same trapdoor trick, and then you can just run them straight into cacti. This will greatly reduce the amount of time that pigmen will spend standing around in your platform up here. And then another thing is Jacob and Varl, two of the guys who worked a lot on this, used fishing rods to move the gas to the side. Oh, and credit to Iron, who also helped. And then it's basically the same system from there, other than instead of using tubes, they just used a long straightaway. In my experience, or as far as I understand, that didn't make too much of a difference. However you store the gas is up to you, but they went ahead and did it something like this. And I hope that much of this information might be useful to you when you go about catching your own ghasts. I'm sure he can explain everything in that video link below. As for actually filling them into the rails, it's not that hard. So what we did on our server was we took rails just like this, and then I think this was one out. You extend the rail all the way like this. This is not how you need to do it. You can kind of do it however you guys want, but connect it up to the gas just like so, and then have a rail set up like, where are my rails? Do I not have a good rail set up? Huh, I must have accidentally cleared it. All right, boys, we're gonna have to do this by hand. I didn't get to save a thing, so we're gonna set up some rails and some levers. Yeah. So basically, you would just put powered rails right in front of each of the ghasts, and then powered rails in between. Now, what I'm setting up here is kind of a junction system. Put a bunch of rails in place like so, and power everything. Okay, so what I've set up here is kind of a rail junction system setup. I'm not going to do this for every single ghast because it's kind of self-explanatory. I'm sorry, but it shouldn't be too hard to get this. Once you catch the ghasts and you name them, just make sure you did what I showed earlier and you make the glass third block up on every single rail, just so that the ghast will never ever look at you and they won't ever get mad. When you move them in, you're probably going to want help from another person because you'll have a system set up like this, but like this, but this will block the minecart, so it won't actually go in. So what you're gonna have to do is remove this glass. This will make it dangerous for a second where the ghast will be able to see you, but if you replace it right away, you should be okay. How you do that is kind of up to you. I mean, hell, you could have a system where you run the minecart straight in, like from the side, and then do it like that, and then have the ghast safe all the way, and then that'll just put it right into the system. How you wire it up is kind of up to you, kind of case to case. If you're in single player, this will be very, very difficult. I'd recommend, you know, mob griefing off if you're okay with commands, or spectator mode if you're okay with commands. Or even opening up a land world and signing on a second account, if you will, and like toggling this as you go. I had another person on our server toggling that while we did all this, and it was very easy to do, but it shouldn't be that hard if you do this system here. And then, like, for example, at the end, you can just have one more junction, just lead it all the way, connecting it to this rail line over here, and then you can do the exact same thing as I just showed. So I don't want to show exactly how to do it just like that, because I mean, it's kind of up to you. This is how we did it though, and it's not too hard. Hopefully this is enough information for you. Now, actually building the ghast catcher, like in the video I linked below, is sort of up to you guys. I know it's a little late to be saying this in the tutorial, but once you finish the perimeter, it might have been easier to build that right away. Catch the ghasts within the perimeter, like down under this farm. You can still do that, by the way. Like, this farm is totally spawn proof when disabled, so it'll lower your rates of ghast spawning because it'll be above it, but I mean, it's gas, you guys. It's not that hard. Once you put it in place, you should be able to move the ghast wherever you want, and you're going to need 64 name tags. I always recommend dinner bone, just so they're upside down and you know which ones are named. I don't know, it's kind of nice, but I'll be loading in the ghast in creative, and then that'll finally move all the mobs over. I wanted to include this clip in the tutorial because this is sort of outside of survival mode. I mean, unless you're spawning your ghast in creative, and hey, honestly, you know, 1-to-1 here. If you're in single player and nobody cares if you cheat on your world, I don't blame you for doing this. All right, I got you. If you're putting your ghast in creative and you built the rest legit, no one's judging. All right, I don't recommend it, everybody, but I mean, I get it. Putting the ghast in like this is super simple. If the minecarts are moving, just place them on the side. Now, even if you're messing around with this world in creative mode and you tend to break something, or if you screw something up, replacing the ghasts just like this is super easy. Now, actually naming them is sort of a different story. They don't always stay named, and that can get really, really tricky. So what I'd recommend doing is going in, getting as close to the ghast as possible, naming them with your dinner bone tag or whatever you're using, and then just relogging. When you come back in, the ghasts that aren't properly named will be back upside right, and you'll be able to see easily whichever ones are not. In this case, we got lucky and all of them were completely fine. Ah, glorious moment. All of the ghasts are in place, and there's no floor for them to land on. Everything's just gonna fall into the void, so if you're building if you're messing around in the creative world, this is always a fun moment. Unfortunately, when the world download's released, this will have an item distribution system in it, so you kind of have to destroy everything to enjoy this, but it's always fun to just like watch the mobs rain down. All right, now we're getting into the item distribution part. This thing is fit to handle 108,000 items an hour. This is way faster than the farm should be. Even with multiple mob caps, you shouldn't be hitting this. So I actually had to redesign this from the old system, which was only fit for 54,000, so I basically doubled it. And we're going to use a trick so that when a hopper's facing straight down, and then you face a hopper sideways, it can actually kind of double the weight that it loads. So if I actually can demonstrate this right here, this hopper will be able to split its output, just like so. So if I can do this into this observer, you can see that if we put in a stack of items, it'll unload extra fast, and it'll basically load at double hopper speed because both of these are getting used. And then we'll be using that exact same concept with the nether mob loot. So yeah, start with an area just like so. This will be right under your spawning platform. Decide on the corner that you want to be standing in. In this case, we'll be facing from here. You can go from, I guess you can technically go from here if you're kind of a righty or a lefty, I don't know. You can go in from, you know, either side. It depends on exactly where you're looking, but make sure that you settle on that because this is where it'll become important. You're going to want hoppers on the sides, and then these two middle hoppers will be facing off to the side. Then you're going to want a dropper facing into... This is your basic dropper loadout. You'll have 3 facing into a 1x1 area, just like so. And then you can wire these up just by doing this. You can have a hopper to the side, just like that. And then you can follow that exact same pattern on the other side, just like so. Now, once those are in place, you're going to want to put a dropper above these hoppers. Technically not necessary, but it will reduce the overall impact of having, you know, open hoppers. So you can do it just like that. And then you do the exact same thing on the other side. Put a dropper facing straight down like this, and then you can something to place it against just like that, and then just like that. Then hopper facing into it, and then hoppers facing into those. There you go, just like that. So it's a lot of hoppers. This is kind of an end game farm. Unfortunately, we won't be able to cover this hopper because it is the one you'll be standing on. So leave that open for future notice. Next, you're going to want to actually wire up the item distribution. So we're going to need to follow this just like so. For these droppers right here, if I'm not mistaken, you will actually need obsidian. So we will have a slime block moving between here, and you're going to want to make sure that it won't have any impact on the wiring. You don't want it to be ripping out your comparator blocks, but we're actually going to need to put this 1 block lower, just like so. Comparators out the back, and then this next step is kind of important. You're going to want 2 repeaters. So what this means is, I'll show you in a second, but we'll need 2 repeaters. And then you just want to angle it up. That's where the pistons will go. 4 ticks back here, or else the pistons will connect. I'm going to grab a piston from up here. Piston, piston, and then the other piston will go right above this repeater. I'll get it in there in a second. I'm going to grab an observer. This all doesn't need to be obsidian. I've done you a disservice by doing that. I need a building block. Let's go grab stone. Repeaters should look like so. Alright, we're going to kind of start from scratch here. Repeaters should look like so. Normal block. Into a repeater. Dust on top of this. And then the piston gets placed against that. So that should be what you're looking at. Alright, and then you're going to put observers facing into these pistons, just like so. And then over here, you're going to want these observers to be facing away. And it'll make sort of a clock. And if you want to update this, you absolutely can. And then just like that. So the reason that we're going to have 2 repeaters like so is basically you'll make a really fast clock, and that's completely fine. However, and this will happen, if you have 1 input going, 1 hopper is not fast enough to keep up with the clock. And the second repeater setup will basically make it so that the piston doesn't keep firing back and forth. That will get really annoying. Believe me, like if you didn't have that, it would just be like this. Yeah, no, we don't want that. So it'll be a lot better just to have 2 repeaters in there. So do that for your sake, and then that should be good. Now, it's not quite the same for the other side. We're gonna need to go out to the sides for each of these, and it's you know, it's a little unfortunate. This will be a really big messy wiring, but this same basic clock for the other side should suffice. Now, some of these might need to be obsidian. It doesn't matter. It'll be an easy swap later on. And then, you know, same clock that we had before. And then this one right here will be same thing. 1, 2, 3. Go up, and then comparator, 2 repeaters, piston, observer, and oh, can I sneak it in here? Observer. And then on the other side, you can go out to the side. On Minerva, our storage system was built incorrectly, so this kind of, you know, you can move this clock parallel with this one if you desire, but on here we will build it the normal way. just like so. Okay, those are your basic clocks. Now, if any items come into here, if you turn this farm on again and start killing stuff, the items will get dispensed, just kind of out into no man's land. So we're gonna have to deal with that. Basically, just put it. Oh, I missed a hopper, didn't I? Look at that. Put in the glass, just like so. Make sure these areas are totally clear. You might need a few leaves in here. I'll grab those right now. I'll use jungle, why not? Might need some, actually, you know what? We're gonna use spruce, because spruce is one of the few types of leaves that actually holds its color in the nether. This is going to be rather specific. You're going to need to place a trapdoor just so it doesn't align against the ice. And I can show that here. Place a trapdoor just like so, and then it'll fall a couple of blocks, and then it'll land down where a piston will be pushing. So it appears as though I'm gonna have to make an edit in this tutorial. You don't actually need the obsidian up that high because the slime block should be clear and out of the way. But I'm gonna change out my loadout and then show you how to do that. Okay, so you want to set up the system kind of like this. Make sure the glass goes all the way down, and then you're gonna have 2 packed ice connecting this entire thing. 2 packed ice connecting this entire thing. Basically, we'll be pushing it to this corner. So we'll have 1 spruce leaf or whatever kind of leaf connecting the whole thing, and then we might actually be able to sneak in a piston just like this. So we can actually have 2 leaves just like that. So you're going to want to place leaves all around here so the items don't, you know, go anywhere where they shouldn't. And basically what this will do is we placed in that trap door just to ensure that every single item lands on this block. And then we fall a couple blocks here just to ensure that they all stay on this block. I mentioned we built it incorrectly on our server. If you build this too close up, some of the items might go out onto the ice, and then you're gonna have a bad time. That's a South Park reference. And you might be able to build this a block higher, but I like it to be safe just to have 2 spruce trapdoors just forcing it all the way. I mean, any kind of trapdoor. We'll force it onto this block and then push it over to the side. And then we're going to have another piston out here doing kind of the exact same thing. And then just like the over there, 2 trapdoors, make sure that doesn't go on the ice. Leaves where the slime block connects, and then just like that. So then you're going to have this system right here, and your output will basically be right here. And then this is where your storage room is going to be. So if you're building this, you know, you might want to keep track of bedrock, because we are at Y19. So we only have about 14 blocks of clearance here before we start seeing, before we start hitting bedrock. So you might want to be careful about where you're going to actually put your storage room. But as for actually wiring this, it's going to be a little bit of a trick. So to sync everything up, we're going to bring it all to a basic clock right here. And I have a 4-tick repeater leading into a comparator that I don't have in my inventory. We shouldn't need any more trapdoors. I can just do it like so. We're going to have a 4-tick repeater leading straight into a comparator clock. Then we're going to wrap it around just like so. Be 2 ticks, 2 ticks. Put a dust there. Block here, block here. And then we're going to actually need to wire this up. So it was kind of just, oops. It was kind of discovered that slime blocks are honestly probably the least laggy way to do this. So this is a lot easier than a bunch of redstone lines, because this will be updating rather often. Every single time this observer gets an input, it'll be triggering this slime block system. So you want to just lead it in here 4 ticks just so the clock keeps running. And then you're going to want to spawn proof all of this. Leaves or slabs are a pretty good choice. Especially for the slime block thing, you're gonna want leaves, because now you know they won't connect to the slime blocks. And then just put basically anywhere any mob can spawn. Although in this case we can just extend the glass down 1 block. Anywhere it can spawn. And then out the back here, this is where we kind of goofed up as well. We had carpets kind of here, so you know, build this kind of however you wish, but this clock needs to be at the back. And just know that whenever this clock is triggering, or this clock is triggering, this line of dust and or this clock more specifically needs to be turned on. So however you want to do that is I suppose up to you. And then just make sure that everything works completely fine, just like that. And then the block will save us 1 more dust, because you know the whole reason we're doing the slime block thing is to avoid dust, just like that. Okay, so only 1 more to do. Just place this, and then let me grab more slime blocks. Push it up to the side here. We can actually make it so that it's going to... Let's see. I'm trying to think of the creative way to wire this. basically whenever this extends, we're going to want to push it onto that block. So just to illustrate this, whenever this happens, it'll trigger that clock. And then whenever it's out of items, it'll turn everything off. All right, so come in with the leaves, spawn-proof it, because when that extends, we don't need to be covered in leaves. All of this glass was just for my measuring earlier, as you saw. We don't need that anymore. I did forget that I had F3 open. For those of you with OCD, my bad. So that's all the wiring for the actual clocks. And then we just need to trigger this piston down here. So I think it's 1 tick on this one. If it's wrong, I'll fix it later. And then we need to bring this down a block. So I like to use a repeater here. Just give it a couple ticks, and then we're going to need to get a little creative. So the way that I figured out to power this is actually kind of a funny story. I was having trouble with this for a while. We were in creative for a good bit of time. A few people going back and forth with their different ideas. I tried this out, and it worked miraculously. To this day, I still am not sure 100% how this works, but it does. You're going to want to have an observer facing out this side piston here, and then triggering this piston. This will work. And then it'll be updating this observer monostable here, and it'll be leading into a 2-tick repeater. This does need to power this piston somehow, so might need to get a little creative for that. So I can actually extend this out a block and then maybe have it do something like that. And then that'll actually power the piston just fine. A little bit more dust than we want, but should be okay. And then while you're powering this, you need to make sure that this piston here gets powered. So this repeater can bring the block down pretty quickly, and then we can power straight to this piston, 1 tick, just like so. And if I built this correctly, that should already be wired up completely. So if you turn on the clock from up above, it should push all of the items wherever you need them to be. Now, of course, these are going way off into the void. I'd recommend an ender chest or some kind of normal whatever, but it needs to align the items up against a chest like so, and it'll push it all the way along the ice. This is your ice stream, so there you go. Everything is wired up completely fine. Now, I'm not going to use redstone blocks here. I say ender chests because if you plan on putting hoppers on these front rows, they will read out of a normal chest, and it won't quite function properly. So just sort of some food for thought. But now you can just put in all of your hoppers. If I'm not mistaken, if they've changed anything, you should be able to place the ice out about 24 blocks. I didn't bother counting here because if we put in some items here, it'll do the math for us. We can just wait for it to extend and then realize that we have a bunch of hoppers in place. And then we can fix that and then realize that the items should stop right about here. Right here, it'll basically be the last block. We can put a cactus here, and that'll destroy all the extras. And then, see what I mean? You want to spawn-proof every last block that mobs can spawn, because if they can, they will. Bunch of hoppers, and then we'll get into the even more complicated parts. So all that redstone here was actually kind of the easy part. The actual redstone for this is actually pretty easy too. I guess it depends on your skill level. So you're going to want to have basic filters, just like so. Build it just like that. And the look of this will be repeater into dust that I don't have, into a repeater into a torch that I don't have. And then basically your setup should look like this. The hoppers will run down a little bit further. I am going to go ahead and I'm going to set up a shulker box loader and then a basic storage system. All right, you guys. So the storage room is ready to talk about. I'm going to start the storage at this ice block. Like I said, you can start it here. That's totally fine. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But I am going to start it here just because. So you're going to want a basic filter. It should look something like this. That's just completely tileable. You can build it as long as you want. And then here's the basic shulker box loader. I'm basically going to just hold this still for you guys just so you guys know exactly how to build this. You can build this as long as you want up until, you know, the ice runs out here. And that should allow you to build it, you know, as you please. You can choose to save as much bones or coal or blaze rods as you will. I will be completing the storage room. I'll show it in this video, and it will be in the world download. That's just how I do it. You know, I'll just do like the typical 1 skull, 5 bones, coal, etc., etc. And then I'll show you kind of what's going on. But while this area is kind of empty, just extend this as long as you want. The filter leads into a dropper. These are droppers. Both of these are droppers. This is a dispenser. And then this shulker box loader loads in the shulker box. When this is full, it'll get triggered like so. When this is full, this comparator will read out the back that this hopper is full, and it'll trigger the system. It shouldn't double trigger like that. That's just because I removed it like that. But if this gets, you know, full back here, it'll do that. And then it'll load in the next shulker box. Now I did that because I put in too many items. But you know what I mean. It should work completely fine. And then that'll just go straight down. And this is your storage right here. This can be as long as you want. I was pretty okay about keeping this pretty high up. I believe the base of this is Y9. So if this was your Y level, you could build this, you know, 5 high chests look really good. I mean, with shulker box loading, that's more than enough. I mean, that is way more than enough storage. In fact, I might even end up using this first filter for skulls, because you should not be loading a shulker box loader of skulls and golden ingots. Both of those should be just straight hopper chains down into the storage room. If you load shulker boxes full of skulls, you will get maybe 1 shulker box of skull every 5 hours of AFK or so. I don't think that's the way you want to operate, because you might want every last skull. So yeah, and then out the back here, you just need a little bit of storage for chests, and then this line going sideways is for shulker boxes. That's where you'll just take it, craft as many as you can, load them in. Obviously, if you don't want to use a shulker box loader for this, you can load this straight into a storage room. Hopefully that won't be too hard. I would hope if you made it this far and you haven't had too much of a problem, that's not, you know, going to be difficult for you. But basically this system will just load in all the shulker boxes you need. Basically, you should be operating when this is completely full, and then it'll just pull from it as it needs. And then this system out the back is just sort of a safety. It's unnecessary in that, no, it's totally necessary. When this first hopper fills, that's English. When this top hopper fills up, and if you've got multiple rows of coal, for example, if this top hopper fills up, there's nothing telling the system to stop sending shulker boxes down here, so they'll just stack up and eventually get wasted. What this does out the back is when the hopper is, if I can just empty this, when the hopper gets completely full, it'll activate this comparator and tell the system to stop collecting items. And you can see that it only triggers at signal strength 15. So what that means is you can just see how this is one wide tileable. They don't interact with each other. It's completely fine. You do need something like basically anything that accepts a comparator. I don't think cauldrons can have comparators on them, but a hopper back here, a dropper, a dispenser, a furnace would be a good one. Basically an inventory item. You can use beacons for all that matters, but a comparator leading into a comparator, and then this simple torch tower. This is a bit of a late edit, but do not build that torch system in survival mode. Hope I'm not gonna confuse you too much with this, but the torches will power way too many lines of redstone. It'll shut down most of the row. I didn't realize this when I was building this originally, but there is a very, very simple solution. Basically, lead the comparator into a piston with a cauldron with 2 bits of water in it. I am so sorry. On our world, we had a nether portal right below this, so you might be able to just bring in a whole bunch of water bottles in. You only need to put 2 in there, and then if you put in too many, you can take 1 out with a water bottle. Should be easy enough. Basically, when it extends the piston, it'll be power level 2, and it won't bleed off into the other rows. And then you can just do this for every single one of these, and it should be pretty easy to do. Should look just like this. Alternatively, if you really hate cauldrons, and I don't blame you for not wanting to go through the hassle of bringing water into the nether, it occurred to me that you can also use a furnace. So 4 ender pearls might be really easy if you have an enderman farm, or 14 items of any stackable to 64 item. You can also use a dropper or a hopper or anything that a comparator can read from, but a furnace is nice and easy. And then of course you're going to want to put a slab on top of that. And then you're also going to want to put a slab up here, because when this piston's in its resting position, this will be a spawnable block. Basically, when this triggers, this will lock the system. It'll trigger this once, but it'll lock this hopper, and the items will just start building up in this dropper. And then once you've taken a shulker box from the system and this is no longer activated, it'll trigger this once again, and then your items will start flowing through. So to demonstrate that the hopper is full, it triggers the system, but then the items, if I can show up here, will start getting stuck in this top dropper. That's it. They won't break anything. They'll just be saved up here. And then once you take a shulker box out of the system, it'll trigger it once more, and then it'll just start unloading. So that might be a bit annoying having some empty shulker boxes in the system, but just remember that the only reason you have empty shulker boxes in this system is your farm was full. So kind of a good problem to have. Yeah, like I said, I will build this out in off camera. I will be building this out in the stream that I'm recording this in, but it'll also be finalized in the world download. And I'm not going to end the video here, but this should be the last step in the farm. All right, you guys, the storage room is done on my end. You can see I went for, like I said, 5 of each important type, and then like the rotten flesh and arrows at the end. This is shulker box loading, as you can see, and everything's in here. For the tutorial world, I set up a command block that automatically replaces this chest every time it's empty. It looks like it's full. So basically, if you remove items, it'll, clone it back in and replace it for you. And so it'll keep these fully stocked. What you will need to run this farm, when ready, is a trapdoor up like this. Trapdoor above you. And then I think you might want to remove this stair here, or this here, and replace it with like a stair. It doesn't really super matter, but we were finding in AFK sessions magma cubes can slip through here and end up killing you over time, so it's kind of up to you. But you will need this sword. You do need everything on it. Sweeping edge to affect all the mobs, sharpness 5 to insta kill them, unbreaking is actually unnecessary because of mending. You get so much experience from this thing that it won't matter. And then you will always need strength 2. So you should set up a beacon while you're running this thing just so you can insta-kill everything. But other than that, we should be good. I'm going to have to turn that block sounds down. I can't believe I didn't do that earlier, but yeah, we are good except for one detail that I forgot. That's okay. I edited this way after we had put in the ghast on our server, so it should be okay if you do it right. But these grouped up and I'm not even sure how. I might have missed a rail there, but what you will need to add that I totally forgot about is a pane system. So what I mean by that is these mobs in the corner are unreachable. You can't actually hit them. So you're going to need glass panes going all the way up the side of this thing. It's not a problem. The ghasts will always push the mobs over the panes. It'll get a few of them stuck for a little while. It's not an ideal change, but if you want to be in the corner and use this distribution system, you kind of have to. So once the mobs are all cleared out of here, it is actually safe to be in here in survival mode. You have to be very, very careful, but it is safe. And somebody on our server pointed out that because the pane doesn't connect, you're gonna have to use ice there. So something to do. And then bring the panes all the way up while bouncing between the ghasts. You won't be able to place it in the ghast, so to have them rotating might be necessary, but we can just do that just like so. And then it'll, push the blazes off. Okay, so we need to add in one more thing that I forgot to mention right away, and that is lava. So note, I have entered in game rule do fire tick false. That way it won't catch fire to all my leaves. You will need lava here, or a cactus won't fit, so you just need lava. You will get a ton of experience from this farm, and it will lag you. You won't be able to pick it up fast enough. So lava will basically destroy any extras. I'm in creative, so I'm kind of just collecting everything. But it'll destroy any extra XP that your character won't be able to grab, and keep you from lagging out. Alright, you guys, as for actually fixing the farm, you'll note that after long AFK sessions, some of the blocks will get bugged out like this. This is because mobs shift around, they don't always trigger the tripwire twice, it's not a perfect system, and it's okay. This will not affect your rates a super significant amount until it's been run for a very, very long time. Like, after my 12-hour session, it was only a little bit slower than it was before. However, if you see this and you want to fix it, you can come up here and let me just hop into survival. you can turn on the farm and turn it off again. So I will have shown this wiring in the tutorial by now. This is kind of just managing the farm. You can trigger every piston and retract every piston. This will basically set it back to normal. If a mob is in the system when you do that, it can screw it up. So you might just want to give it another safety flick, and then it'll be completely off. Now, if you want to just turn it back on, you know, just trigger the observer and you'll be back in business. Then if I hop back into spectator here, you guys can see that it'll be completely back to normal. Okay, so one more thing about actually using the farm. Like, I've just showed you guys how to fix it. I want to talk a little bit about AFKing this. So as I showed you, this is without any kind of attack delay reduction. This is with the default swing delay. You can just use it manually, and this farm is plenty fast to use it manually for a while you're watching a show or whatever. But I know you're all curious about AFKing this, and I understand that not everybody understands macros or even what that word means, but basically it's a program that comes with the software on your hardware. What I mean by that is if you have a Logitech mouse, you can go ahead and get the Logitech gaming software, or if you have a Razer mouse, get Razer Synapse. If you have Corsair, I don't even know what it's called, you know, Southern?
It's IQ.
IQ. You can use it to program your mouse. That's what he has here. On Minerva, we have a command for what we call the unicorn horn. Basically, it's an enchanted unicorn horn that has cursive binding, and it reduces your attack delay by increasing your attack speed. I'll post a command in the description below with how exactly to get that. If you're interested in having this kind of thing on your character, we feel that it's kind of okay that it replaces our helmet, and that's just sort of a trade-off. I'm sorry, I am in a channel with other people and they're making noise, but I wanted to leave them in here because, you know, they know more about this than I do in some cases. So I wanted to do this as kind of a real talk kind of thing, because not everybody's into macros, but there's no way that I personally know how to continue swinging your sword completely AFK. So to AFK, meaning you just run this overnight without you being at the keyboard, you do need some sort of program to swing your mouse for you. So what Southern's doing here is he's foolishly aiming at a glass block, because Minecraft can bug out and it will break. And it's kind of convenient that we have a dropper here right above our hoppers so that, you know, you don't accidentally break blocks. When you're standing in this corner, I'll look through his eyes for a second, you want to be aiming as far right to the edge of that dropper as possible without hitting the glass. It doesn't really matter what height you're at. And you do want the slab on the side so that the baby magma cubes don't kill you. Now you're also going to be wanting to hold right click with rotten flesh in your offhand. We use rotten flesh because you kill enough pigmen to keep rotten flesh infinitely. You can forever use it to eat. And you're also going to want that strength 2 beacon like I mentioned, plus regeneration. This will keep you alive because no matter what, you will get hit. You will get hit by magma cubes. A blaze might get mad at you for some reason. Like, if ever you get hit backwards, if you land inside of this hopper or you go to this far corner, blazes will have a line of sight and they will get angry. So if you're constantly eating that rotten flesh, you can see he has the hunger effect, I think that is. It'll allow you to keep your hunger at full. Don't worry about the hunger value, because you just keep eating, and the regeneration will make sure that your hearts will go back up. And then lastly, I mentioned getting hit into that corner. I know this is a lot to do all at once, but if you want to do this like hardcore, you got to know this information. A W macro and or just holding it on your keyboard goes a long way. I personally had this set up in my AFK stream and it did wonders. Basically, it's just forcing you to walk into the corner so that if you do get hit back, you correct yourself. So just to summarize, you'll be walking into the corner, holding right click while you're eating, and then you'll be swinging a sword. Now, I do understand that if you don't have a fast enough macro, like if you don't want to do the unicorn horn and you are dealing with a slow macro to deal with the attack delay, you will be opening this dropper. That's okay. Just replace it with obsidian or stone or something that a sword doesn't mine very fast. That will reduce, you know, the effectiveness, because a hopper checks the dropper above its inventory. Instead of checking the air above it. It very, very, very slightly reduces the lag that, like, the impact that hoppers have on a server, but since 1.9 hoppers have been pretty well optimized, so that's kind of negligible. that's just a little, you know, a thing. So you can replace the dropper with like a single stone, or like I said, obsidian, and that should just about do it. Hopefully that keeps you guys alive. I mean, it's a wither farm, you guys. Everything in this farm wants to kill you. It's a little tricky to keep it going. If you don't want to do the food in the offhand, you can set up like a potion brewer to shoot stuff at you. That's totally up to you. You're gonna have to know the know-how. That's not a part of this tutorial. That's just an option that you guys can have. And wow, this pigman's been in the corner a while. But at least he's picked up an item, so I don't think he counts towards the mob cap. And then just as an added note, this is kind of a really late and really weird time to be putting this in the video, but I did put a piston against this clock, and it did have slime blocks on it, and it kind of made this area really, really small. You can wire it out to the side, you guys. You can do something else with this wiring if it's not okay with you. Just try to make sure you know what you're doing. And I think that's it. I hope this helps you guys. I hope that gives you a little bit more information on how to use this farm safely and correctly. And let's lead into the outro. Alright, you guys, I fixed the ghasts. I must have spawned in too many. That is it. As far as I am aware currently, that should be everything you need to know to build this farm. There is a rare chance for them to get stuck in there, but they'll walk out eventually. It's okay. If I missed anything, I'll hopefully check it in editing. I'll leave a message if I forgot something. Description will have a lot of links and different stuff for you guys to know, including the rates of this farm, which I'll be testing afterwards. And then feel free to comment below if you have any questions or, you know, things you want to say. You can hit us up on Discord. Join our Discord link below. It's a great community, pretty awesome. We can help you out personally there. If I personally don't respond to your comment in time or can't help you with a specific issue, you can go to our technical Minecraft chat, and surely somebody will be able to help you with something over there. But that's it. This was a ton of work for me to make. I usually don't do these sort of huge tutorial style videos, but this was kind of a special farm that I really wanted to share with you guys and help people build. So yeah, here's to getting more wither skellies more faster. Hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks for watching.